Welcome everyone. In the factors of production, now you know already we have 4 factors of production we discussed: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So land need rent, capital need interest, labor get wages, and entrepreneur get profit. So there we talk about main features and examples of land, labor, capital, ownership of entrepreneur, and then we talk about the 4 roles played by entrepreneur. We call DO: decision making, innovating, organizing, and risk taking. Okay, so today our main topic we are going to discuss is the specialization and division of labor. So you can see the subject vocabulary. Specialization means something, the production of a limited range of goods in general in business, because specialization means doing some limited range. But normally in specialization of labor means like when you are doing same thing again and again, the special talent, the special ability, the special professionalism, that special skill that you are getting actually to do something faster than others. Specialization. So specialize means something, if you are doing same thing repetitively again and again, the special skill that you are getting we call specialization or expertism. So that's modern business. That's this, we are using this system called the specialization concept that we are using heavily in specialization business. Like garment factories, if you take an example, you can see so many specialization concept that we are using. All right. So in the specialization, we talk about this process normally when a limited range of goods are produced by an individual, a business, or region, or a nation. We call them, this is specialization. Like you specialize, some areas are there, they specialize on furniture. Like in Sri Lanka, the areas like town Moratua, it's like that. Like if you go to the specialized areas for vegetables, like Dabulla, like Nuarelia, those are very well famous for specialized vegetables. Like that, there are some specialized areas are there for spare parts. There are some parts on column. Like there's some specialization means that area, it can be a region or nation or a person, has some kind of a like a limited specialities there, and they have a, than the other people, than the other nations, than the other regions. That area have a special speciality for producing something. For example, Swiss watch, Australian apple, right? Like you can see that some specialty for country wise. You can see the dairy from New Zealand, dairy products like that. So we can specialize. Some mining things come from Australia, they're specializing on those things. Like Coca-Cola specialize on soft drink, Toyota make cars, Emirates specialize on air travel, logistics, air traveling. Specialization inside the business also common. Departments specialize in different activities such as marketing department, production department, finance department, personal or human resource department, like that. There are inside the business also specialized departments are there. Even you can see in the school also we have specialized departments. So we are, so which is, I'm working on business and accounting department. You can see that mainly we are specializing on business and accounting, and there are maths department, English department, chemistry department, performing arts department, modern language department. Like that, there are certain departments are there specializing on their right subjects. Like that, here in business studies, we are using labor, or division of labor, the worker specialization. Also, we are using, that's a really good scientific management principle, the specialization concept. This was introduced by a famous scientist and person who actually do so much of contribution to the business and the management, called Taylor, right? F.W. Taylor, the father of scientific management. He's the one who introduced this system called specialization and division of labor. After that, this division of labor concept is heavily using in certain industries. You can see right now, like that when you manufacturing garment factories, like textile industry, a division of labor, you can see the division of labor specialization in specific tasks or skills by individual, right? So so this, I'll explain some kind of a specialization example using a diagram. You can see if you are working in a garment factory, right? If you are using in an organization like in a garment factory, you can see the specialization can be there. So someone working in the, let's say these are the like a cutting section. All the cutting activities are, we can see production line C, cutting. So in the textile coming from outside, and then the garment factory is actually using the cutting section. And the cutting section is entire, these are people, everyone who are the cutters who actually very specialized in using this machine and everything, accurate they can cut. This output, the cut pieces, then we are going to other section we call stitching section. So the stitching section of the garment factory, the Yuki machine operators are doing that. We will name it S, stitching section. From stitching section, they stitch a garment like a normal, let's say t-shirt or a blouse or shirt or trouser, whatever thing. Stitching section, they stitch it and then they are going to pass that into other section, because they have to, after stitching the thing, you have to do the buttoning part. Then they are passing this to the buttoning department. The buttoning department also, them some workers, people are working. So entire life, the entire day, they are doing buttoning, right? The buttoning section. And after buttoning section, after finishing, so you are sending this one, this the entire garment factories and the item that you have right now. This garment factories have buttons and stitch everything, and they will put the collar, everything. And but the garment is not finished yet. So you have to do the other part, important thing called ironing section, right? So let's make it ironing section. So ironing section department they make irons and everything. So throughout the day they work with the iron in a like little bit high temperature. They quickly iron, right? Then us actually they can quickly iron. They will not take at least 1 minute. Like within seconds, within means few seconds, they can finish iron. They can iron some trouser or shirt, because that much they specialize on ironing. After ironing section, they finish. They are giving that in another department, right? So the wood is not yet to be ready for the exporting. We call this section packing section. Packing section. So in this section, they actually take the iron clothes, iron t-shirts, iron trousers, everything, and they do the packaging part. The packaging will be, so they have to put some boxes. They have to put into the boxes, or sometimes they have to put into the some cover, a polythene cover or paper cover, or they have to pack it. Okay, so it's called the packing section. Now after packing section, after the boxing and packing, then they are sending it to the other department. That's called the logistic, the delivery section. That goes to the customers. Then containerization, and then we call the delivery department. So dispatch, ready to dispatch after packing. Then they put it to boxes or large boxes, or they put it to like there are different ways are there. They are ordering. They can put it to one box or individual boxes, and then go to dispatch, the delivery, transportation. So you can see this is the division of labor in different departments of a garment factory. The people who are working in the cutting section, they're specializing on cutting. The people who work in the stitching section, they specialize on stitching. And then after that, buttoning, ironing, packing, and dispatch, delivery. Like that is a simple example. So everyone is working in this department are specializing on this. People who are working cutting section, they never go to stitching, never go to buttoning, because they know only limited scope. They know how to cut the clothes, right? But they don't know how to iron, or they don't know how to stitch, because that's beyond their knowledge. So there are some certain advantages and disadvantages. For example, certain advantages means specialization with division of labor is increased efficiency, more productivity, accuracy. These people are expert on this cutting, stitching, buttoning, right? Because they're faster, more faster they can work, because always they are working the same thing. Very fast and productive, high quality. However, these workers, the disadvantage is the professional diseases can become. The people who are always working in the ironing department are always exposed to high temperature, so some problems can become. For people who work in the stitching department, some problems can become. There are some legs, and there can be some kind of like arthritis, and also some problems are coming. Professional diseases, like people who are working in front of computer always, their eyesight can be weakened. These professional diseases can become. And if you're doing the same thing again and again, it causes boredom, monotony, the fatigue, the boredom, and tiredness can become as another disadvantage like that. So that's why organization doing some job rotation and like not changing job activities are there, they're introducing. So let's see what is the main good and bad side in the division of labor. So it allows people to concentrate on limited range of tasks like construction. Architect will draw the plans, and bricklayer will build up walls, and the roofer will lay the roof, and so on. And division of labor will increase the productivity for the following reasons. First one, workers concentrate on the task they do best. Secondly, worker skills improve as they regularly repeat the same task. And also time is saved because workers are not switching from one task to another, right? The time saving because they're not switching from one task to another because always they're doing the same thing. And organization of production is easier to organize. So the main these main advantages of like division of labor there. Although specialization is like to improve productivity, it does have disadvantages, as I told you. The work can become tedious and boring because of the repetition task. And also, when one stage of production depend on another, we call interdependency. There may be delay in one stage, breakdown or delay. Like if one work absent, then we cannot continue. Imagine in garment factory. Imagine, let's say we are using only, but in a factory there are more people. I mean, like if one section, imagine there is no power, or imagine the cutting department workers say start some strike or something. Then what happen? If this is not there, we can't process here, right? Same thing. If the imagine the buttoning department, so button run out of like the not enough stocks, then they can't proceed to ironing, packing, and this one. So everything interrelated like a chain. If one person or some department absent or something breakdown or machine breakdown or something, then they cannot proceed. It's another thing. The interdependence is very heavily relying on the factories like this. Division of labor must have very good this like coordination and control and maintenance of the machines and everything. It's really important. Otherwise, delays and everything happen. Right. So this is a division of labor, specialization, good and bad. Right. Uh, so these stuff actually in my handout I have given there. Right. You can see the land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and after that we talk about these activities and the division of labor. So the activities we talk about here. So materials are here and division of labor definition and the advantages, and also the disadvantage, specialization, advantages, disadvantages. Right. Okay. So advantage specialization is there. So Gianna, can you read this advantages part?
An employee needs not to do everything by himself. At each stage of production, there is a different group of workers to do each task. It allows them to focus on an area which they have excelled. Workers can join with low skills, practice, and experience enable the business to become more efficient and more organized.
Yeah. Second one.
This allows them to use specialist uh, equipment that is ideal for making one type of product.
Okay. Last one.
This increases efficiency of an employee and quality of the output. Therefore, it builds an image in the mind of the consumer that could help the business retain customer loyalty.
Okay, thank you. So these are the main three advantages. Employee no need to do everything, so he had to concentrate on the one task. As a result of that, this because of this special focus, it can normally skill will develop and he can do a better service. And second one, it allowed them to use a specialist equipment more carefully. So the equipment breakdown, machine breakdowns will be not happen frequently because they're very professional. They know how to use the machines and equipment very well. And third one is increase efficiency of an employee, like speed of manufacturing, speed of processing, and quality of output. Therefore, it builds an image in the mind of the consumer, right? That help business to retain customer loyalty. So you can provide a quality product. So that's the main advantage of specialization. Quality output can be come from them because they are specializing on that. Right. For example, if you want to find the quality, the best watch in the world, is I think that goes to Switzerland is the best country to buy watch because the Swiss watches are very famous because they're specializing on watch, right? Like for vehicles, like there are Japanese vehicles are like Toyota, really good because they are very well specialized on them. There are other vehicles also like German vehicles and Italian vehicles, but there are some specialities there. Like always, we know always you can get a better quality output from the specialized organization. Okay. However, there are disadvantages, drawbacks of there. Okay, Sean, can you read this disadvantages part? Three disadvantages.
Yes, if workers have to concentrate on just one task, they're likely to become bored and demotivated. This could lead to slower production,
Okay.
poorer quality, or more workers leaving the business. Less independence. If one worker at one section of the production process gets disrupted, the whole process will be affected. And mass production techniques replace craft production.
Very good. Right. So mainly these are the main three disadvantages. Like if they become bored, that's a simply we can say they become bored, or tardiness we call sometimes monotony. Monotony means same thing, similar words. Monotony, fatigue, boredom, tired, because we are doing same thing again and again. Imagine the person who works in the garment factory. His job is to imagine put the buttons. So every day he put buttons. He's a buttoning person. So entire life he works on millions of buttons. So he's a buttoning specialist, but his life is boring, no? Life and everything very monotonous. So he must be very at that point he was very disappointed at that time. Sometimes the buttoning and everything, because it was same thing. Other workers also say that's why sometimes they organize some motivational things. Sometimes they will listen to the like music while they're working. Sometimes they have myself breaks and rest, like tea breaks and lunch breaks. And sometimes to reduce this situation, people are waiting for the lunch hour to talk and to have some kind of like a play some games or something like always. That's why even in the schools also we have some first break, second break introducing. Because of that, I know how you're waiting until the first break and second break to play basketball and play cricket and play some games to do, because that's the nature. Because normally everyone they don't want to do the same thing for a long time. It's become monotonous and boredom. That's why even online education also always we are telling our students and all the students and like all the people who are doing online, take a break, like at least 1 hour to 1 hour. You have to walk somewhere and you have to drink water, so you can go somewhere else for a change, for a movement. Because otherwise we are working at a stretch. It's not good for our health and not good for our mentality, everything. So it's always better to change. So what that's the main disadvantage of specialization. You are getting that tiredness, and sometimes even professional diseases can come. That's the baddest thing. Like the people who are working with the computers, their eyesight can weaken. It's people who are working always typing and working with their like fingertips, and there sometimes their problems can become in the fingertips, like that. Like especially like a lecturers and teachers in long time, because we are talking. Sometimes our voice, there are some problems with our voice can become, even that can applicable for a singer, it can applicable for a cricketer, like a soccer player, right? Because they are always like working hard, practicing, and then so they it can be caused to sometimes sometimes their arms, their bones can be, some problems can become. So another thing, less independence, because the everything, because like a chain effect is there, like a dominoes effect. If one guy absent, if one worker is delayed, or one worker is actually sick or something, then his workload has to be done by someone else, and then the problems comes and the entire process will be disrupted. And also the mass production technique replace the craft production techniques. There you can see the always this like organization, the as a result another disadvantage happen to the human relations, because people is actually replaced by machines because of specialization. Sometimes the entire the machines and everything are working very heavily, like only like robotics. So craft production, which means like people who are using their skills, like always people who are using their uh, like handicraft, like mainly their skills and talents are no more longer are using as a result of this thing, because are specialized only the one person only doing a small part of the entire process. His scope is very limited, his knowledge is very limited. As a result, the craft production, the craft techniques, everything is reduced. Okay, so the next part is the capital intensive production and the labor intensive production, right? Uh, right. Now, our next topic actually the labor intensive and capital intensive production. So far, the mainly the division of labor specialization concept. And the labor intensive and capital intensive production, it's normally we can define the labor intensive and capital intensive means if you use more labor compared to capital, we call labor intensive. Like organization which need more labor, you can see like garment factories, like harbor, like airports, right? schools, like we need more labor, especially hotels and all, we need more labor. So labor intensive businesses. Capital intensive means the organization, the businesses where they use more capital compared to a labor, like more machines, heavy machinery are using. For example, if you talk about the transport and logistics section, like shipping lines and also airlines, and we talk about the railway systems, and like all so many machines are using, heavy equipments are using, but few machine operators are there. Just have to, or sometimes electrical power generators, power plants like Novachol and all. So these people, like a very few people and engineers are working there to just to monitor the records and the maintenance part. But a lot of machine and heavy duty equipments are used in there. Right. So okay. So I invite Oshan to read this para, the labor intensive and capital intensive production.
Businesses have to manage resources effectively. They have to choose a suitable combination of materials, tools, equipment, machinery, and labor for production. Some businesses use labor intensive production, which means that they use relatively more labor than capital. Labor intensive production is common in Far Eastern countries, such as China and Vietnam, where labor is cheap and plentiful. In contrast, some businesses use capital intensive production methods. This means that production relies more on the use of plant and machinery. Production in the West tends to be more capital intensive. The best resource mix between labor and capital depends on the following factors.
Okay, thank you, Ashan. So mainly the best mix, always we can't see 100% capital or 100% labor businesses, because sometimes they're using even some 80-20 combination or 50-50 combination, something like that. For example, because organization with the labor itself on you, because we need machinery also. But even 100% machinery, 100% robotics also not possible. We need at least one or two members to actually just to control, such as on and off, in order just to maintenance and everything, we need something. I think if you watch a movie called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you can see there the Charlie's father works there in a company of the making toothpaste, and at that time he was working in as a main mechanic and everything. He was working in the machine, and after introduction of the automatic machine, his job actually he lose the job. But later on, what happened? He again worked in the same organization as a machine, maintenance guy. He was just to maintain and to put some, control the clean it up and everything. And we need somebody working as an assistant there with the machine operator. Sometimes in organization with the development of the technology, you have to use more machines. It's more productive and more accurate. But the problem here is we still need the labors also in order just to maintain them, but few labors. But this combination of the labor intensive or capital intensive is depending on these factors. Number one, the type of product. Number two, the relative price of the two factors. Type of product, look at the example, the mass product produce fast moving consumer goods are likely to be produced in a huge plants using a huge amount of machinery. Like, however, in many Western economies, most production is focused on providing services that are often very labor intensive, right? Like, for example, provision of financial services uses large amount of labor relative to capital. Like, if you go to bank, insurance companies, these places, we can see so many humans, like we are working with the managers and accountants, everyone are labor, right? So not the machines. So like that. So still the type of the product always important. If it's a service sector, we are using so much of, especially like tourism, insurance, marketing, banking, communication, transportation, everything are using a lot of, manpower than the capital, right? But on the other hand, if you talk about the other industry like primary and secondary industries, relative to labor, we are using so much of machines nowadays, even agriculture. So we can use so much of, tractors, like automatic, grain drying machines, harvesting machines, like so many, tractors and so many things. Sometimes in the like large corn farms, they are like spraying the fertilizers. I'm using drones. right? So they are using that much of technology. So sometimes like a large area, like places like Kansas, you can see in Virginia and all that places where a lot of farmers are there. Few farmers, but large farmlands. That's why like employment is very low in the farming section. Even Sri Lanka also is like that, similar. About 11% people are working in the farming activities, but the output wise, you can see large number of lands and everything they are using. Heavy equipments we are using. Industrial sector also same. Industrial sector also, but 22% people are working in the industrial section, like factories. But nowadays in factories also so many machines are we are using. Like those days in harbor, there are so many people who are using in the port and harbor to carry things and everything, weight lifting, so many things to do. But now we are using like container systems and cables, the equipments like heavy lifting equipments and everything, container yards and everything, container terminals. So it's very always we need a one machine operator, forklift drivers, operators, not the like lot of people. Those days in like before about like 30, 40 years ago, we used a lot of labor, manpower for those industries. But now those industries also converted to more capital intensive businesses. That's why relative price also another important. In a country like China, India, the price of labor is quite cheap. So in that case, still using labor is cheaper than using machines. That's why the prices are determined. But if you go to UK and USA and European countries, price of labor is very expensive. For example, in the price of labor for 1 hour in USA, the labor rate in UK and USA is like $15 per hour, right? But in Sri Lanka, it's only just a 50 cents dollars, like 50 pence dollars. So it's a 0.5. So, but in UK, USA, it's like it's $15. So by giving the work to Sri Lankan factory, so they can save per 1 hour $14.5 because our hourly rate is $0.5, right? In our country, hourly rate. But in UK, USA, the hourly rate is goes like 15 pounds, $15 like that. That's why their country, there are people, there are labor, but the problem is the high cost of production. That's why they are giving that opportunities, the factories and everything. They are operating from the developing countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Thailand, Bangkok, and Philippines, Kenya, India, China. So many factories are operating from there because cost of labor is low. Okay, if the labor costs are rising, the business may be encouraged to employ more capital. In countries like China and India, where labor is relatively cheap, labor intensive production methods are likely to be preferred. That's right. We prefer labor intensive because India and China, we can see the largest, the two countries which have highest population in the world. However, in much of the Western and Europe and USA countries, you can see labor is more expensive and a great deal of manufacturing is capital intensive. Those are the two main factors. So in examination, if we ask a question, okay, what are the two factors which determine the mix between labor and capital intensive? You can say it depends on the type of product, number one, and number two is relative prices of the two factors. Okay, let's go to the summary. Advantage and disadvantage of labor and capital intensive production. Okay, okay, I invite Netra to read the capital intensive production advantages and disadvantages. Netra? Right? So advantage side of the capital intensive production. First of all, that's why I'm talking about the capital intensive production. Right. What about Rumika? Right. Can you read that part? Capital intensive.
So the advantages,
Yeah.
generally more cost effective if large quantities are produced. Machinery is often more precise and consistent. Machinery can operate 24/7. Machinery is easier to manage than people.
Okay. Okay. So this is the normally the generally most cost effective thing, machines, and also is more precise and consistent, very accurate. Like if you use 3D printing and also like other graphic like machines, everything like printing machines, very accurate, high accurate and high consistency, and 24/7 hours you can operate. So they are not asking any breaks right? Only the time you have time for the need the time for the maintenance, but not like a downtime is important. But 24/7 now they can operate in comes for order. But labor not like that. Labor you have to give so many breaks because they're getting very tired easily. That's why more from the tea breaks, lunch breaks, so many things they need. Meanwhile, if you want to go somewhere, let's say sometimes they have some kind of physical needs coming. But for machines, not like that. Machines they are working 24/7 hours. So, but they need time for that. Some rundown times are important because to in order to just to, for example, compute or something, we need some time to shut down because to if you continuously are using, the lifetime of the computer batteries can go down. The machinery is easier to manage than people, right? No need to give holidays, you know, to give breaks, no need to give overtime things. So they are very easy to handle because they are not like a like a live resource. Okay, okay. Romeo, can you disadvantage also?
Uh, Huge setup costs. Long delays may occur when there is a breakdown. May be inflexible. A lot of machinery is highly specialized. May leave the workforce facing redundancy and effort morale.
Okay, cool. This we have to find out like mainly there are certain new words coming. Huge setup cost. Definitely now in the install a machine, huge setup cost coming. It's not easy to, especially if you buy some, a printer. Imagine the installation cost is there, right? You have to plug in and you have to put the toners, everything is there. Huge setup cost. And secondly, long delays may occur. If there's a breakdown, sometimes you have to delays can be happen until you repair that items, and maybe inflexible, like a lot of machinery, like very inflexible, like can't actually, it's determined set for one use, and then you have to continue with that. And finally, may leave workforce facing redundancy and effect morale. So redundancy means sometimes, when the workers actually, organization asks them to leave, like they terminate their contracts or something, organization has to pay some kind of like a compensation for the workers. But here, capital intensive, there's a main disadvantage happen from that. Because of that, because machine replace the labor, as a result the labor become unemployed, and there's a fear that always they're facing redundancy problem because the people are asked you to leave because machines are coming and replacing their jobs, and then affect their morale means their motivation, right? So always, I can see that's the problem when the computer introduced in that century. So a lot of people are worked actually, accountants and so many, clerks, and so many typesetters. So many people's jobs was actually lost because of the one computer. One machine replaced like 10, 20 jobs. So that's the main thing. The redundancy problems came. This is the main disadvantage of the labor intensive production, right? Okay, so again to summarize the lesson, we talk about today the main topic, specialization and division of labor by using example. We talk about the division of labor and specialization is the extra specialization, the extra efficiency that you are getting expertism by working in organization again and again. We talk about the good and bad. We talk about the concentration, efficiency, productivity, accuracy will increase. However, the professional diseases, boredom, monotony, tiredness can become as a result of the specialization. Then we talk about the labor intensive and capital intensive. Mainly labor intensive today we finish. Talk about there are two factors which determine the real combination of labor intensive and capital intensive. That's the type of product and the relative prices of the factors. And finally, we talk about the capital intensive, good and bad. Right. So 6 mark like assess question, analyze question, justify question like 9 marker, outline questions can become, even define questions can become, define the term labor intensive, define the term capital intensive. Okay, so there are so many exam pilot areas are there from this section. So we'll do other part, the labor intensive section, and other the other part of this lesson in my next session. Okay, thank you very much for being with me. See you in my next session. Thank you very much. Bye.